Hey guys, welcome back to Creators Campfire. I'm Bhav.
And I'm Liz.
And on this podcast, which we were just debating how we would pitch it, I think we've gone with, on this podcast, we talk about the behind the scenes of what it's like to work with specifically Ali Abdaal, who I work for, but creators in general, in the hope that this gives you something to take away or help you in any area of the creative world, whether you are the creator that has a team or whether you're part of the team that works for a creator or neither of those things and want to get into either one. We will work on refining that pitch as we go forward, because that was basically a ramble. But yes, that is what we do here, and that is what we will continue to do. So, yeah, that's that. I hate intros, in case that wasn't obvious to anybody. Liz, how was your week?
It was very good. When you were saying that, that just made me think, though, because I think, obviously, we come from quite different standpoints. So, obviously, working for Ali, that's very much a corporate, business, whereas my petrol motion, who I'm very fortunate to be married to, 17 years yesterday.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks. Baz, he obviously is coming to it much later in life, versus in his mid-50s, and he just treats it as a bit of a lull, really. So he was at Meta on Friday, doing some stuff with them, but I guess he's very much on that experiential kind of journey with social media and content creation, whereas Ali's obviously very much on obviously the journey is important to him, but he has obviously got that money kind of focus. So I guess it's quite interesting in terms of how those worlds collide and our different roles in facilitating that for them.
That's so true. Yeah, I'm very unsurprisingly wrapped up in the Ali Abdaal world of just this is how things work. But you're right, there's a whole range of things out there. Yeah, the Ali Abdaal company is ever changing, which is interesting.
But that's kind of the point, though, isn't it? It's it is almost more of a startup. So that probably leads me on to, how was your week? What popped up this week?
Oh my God, so many things. Where to start? This was actually a really, really fun week. So we had podcast batch filming week this week. So we realized a little while ago that it's much easier to batch all of the podcasts in 1 week than to have them sporadic and try and get Ali to film one a week or something. Okay. So batch filming week, completely the way to go. And Amber, the podcast producer, I think was gunning for that and made it happen, and it was wonderful. Nice. And she manages everything, and so everything obviously was all ready to go. So we had a pretty cool list of creators this week. So this is predominantly, I think, for season 7 we're filming for now, which is crazy. And oh my God, it was a fun week. So I'm going to run down the roster because I made a list for something else, but let's use it. So on Monday, we had Dr. Julie Smith. Was I fangirling? Obviously. And I will come back to these in a bit more detail. On Tuesday, we had someone called Alienor, who works for Ultra Speaking, one of our kind of friend companies. And she was talking about social anxiety and a bit of confidence and speaking and all of that stuff. Then we had someone called Ken Kukier, I think that is how you pronounce it, and he's an AI guy, which was kind of fun. On Wednesday we had Dr. Steve Peters, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is the author of The Chimp Paradox, which is a fantastic book, and people should read it. People should 100% read the book. I'm going to butcher
we'll link it in the description. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, that's easier. Guys, go and check out the book. He actually has a new book called The Path Through the Jungle, I think. And it's more like a textbook. And he was basically saying that's even better. He thinks it's an even better thing. And what was actually really interesting is, we're just having a pre-podcast chat. And he was saying that he actually wanted to say that, oh, sorry, not the table. He was saying that he wanted to say this is a book that actually, it's literally this thick textbook, this thing. And I was like, this looks incredibly intimidating, but loved your first book, would love to get into this. And he was saying, actually, he wanted to say somewhere that this is something that you should actually go through in 12 months. Right. It's almost one of those, but obviously that's not a great selling thing, and you don't want to exactly. But yeah, his point was that you do. I can't remember if he said you do 1 unit every 2 weeks or 2 units every whatever it was. He was kind of this is a 12-month thing. And I was like, obviously been working for Ali. I was like, oh, you should make it into a course. And he was like, actually, we have. And I'm like,
oh, nice.
Okay, now I'm in. So he actually has a course, which, we will also link below. And it basically, I think it's an 8-week course, and it kind of guides you through some of the stuff. So sorry, top level overview is the chimp paradox is all about how our brains work. And it's all about the chimp, the computer, and the human. And it's kind of that it's almost like Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, which was the Daniel Kahneman book of just your immediate that your computer kicks in much faster than the human, and then you also have a monkey mind, and therefore when you react, you like it's one of these things that reacts, and it's all based on that. So it's basically it's understanding how your brain works and reacts to things. And when you're like get road rage or something, it's like your monkey mind comes out and it's like, oh, I'm just mad. But actually your like human mind knows that it's a bit illogical and all of that stuff. And then your computer is basically like processing all of this stuff, and it remembers these things. So the next time something happens, it's like, oh, I've got a reference point, that kind of stuff. It always reminds me of, do you ever watch that book, that film? What was it? What was it called? Damn it. But it was basically in the mind of this teenager, and it had all the emotions. So it had happy, it had sad, it had anger. It was a great film. Anyway, if I remember, we'll link it in the description. I digress. The point was, that was kind of cool. And he has a course, and I 100% want to jump on that. Anyway, back to the list. And then in the afternoon, this was very cool. Steven Bartlett.
Amazing.
All about Steven Bartlett.
Okay. Oh,
and again, I want to come back to this because this guy. And then on Thursday, I think we had a cancelled interview in the morning, which was a shame. And then in the afternoon, we had someone called Tom Elliott, who owns Pizza Pilgrims. So that was just like a cool entrepreneurial, this is my story kind of vibe. So amazing week for the podcast. So yeah, obviously fangirling over Julie Smith, who came in on Monday. Such a nice person. Like genuinely, it's just like, oh my God, how are you so nice? So we did the recording, we went out to lunch and stuff, and she chilled, and she's just, she traveled like 2.5 hours or something to get to us. And it's like, you are just wonderful. So big fan, in case that wasn't obvious. And then, Steven Bartlett, this guy. So we ended up going to their studio to film just to make it easier for them. We get in, and for anyone who's seen The Diary of a CEO, it's like an amazing setup. And obviously it's all dark.
It?
And
like
it's just
and deluxe kind of vibe,
right. And it is like you walk in and it's this dark room, and it's like, oh shit, this is I'm in the studio. And then their cameras. So we're like, obviously, like we're in your studio, we always use cameras, and we'll bring our SD cards, so we, the footage and stuff. And we rock up. It was me, Amber, and Ali, and we rock up, and they have 9 cameras all set around this thing, and they're all the fancy Blackmagic film cameras. And we're like, well, this isn't intimidating. And we're like, literally, we only need 2 angles. We need one on Stephen and we need one on Ali. How the hell do we make this work? And we're like, we've got our SD cards. Do these cameras even take SD cards? Yes. Turns out they do, which was fine.
Okay,
but they didn't use them. Like they don't, so they're like, yeah, it takes them, but we don't really know how it works. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And they've got like the editing station out in the back. So Jack kind of helped us set up, which is the Steven's, like I think he's the main guy that produces he's like the Diary of a CEO producer. So he kind of help us get set up, and then he had to go. And then Will, I just want to take a second to shout out Will, who is Steven's new videographer. The guy's 21. I think he quit uni to come and be Steven's videographer.
Amazing. Yeah.
And just the nicest guy, and absolutely just like stayed in there for the whole thing for us, made sure things were recording. And yeah, I just massive appreciation for Will, just absolute legend for helping us, because I don't think we would have had a fully recorded episode without Will. So we kind of did all of our stuff, and it was all recorded. And then we finished, and we were like obviously worried because we'd gone a little bit over, and we're like, well, Steven's time is pretty valuable, like shit. Not once did he make us feel like he was in a rush. He was just so nice. He spent time talking to Ali. I mean, they know each other anyway, so like whatever, but like still taking the time out. And then, and I don't know why this is such a big thing, but it is, and it clearly means that not everyone does it. But he spoke to me and Amber in the same way that he spoke to Ali. Like there was no like hierarchy. There was no, oh my God, I'm Steven Bartlett. There was no, who are you, or anything like that. He was just a nice guy. And
I'm so pleased you said that, because like, like when you like don't meet your heroes, because it's like, and I think, so I think there's 2 things to dive into. So I'm really interested in like the Will thing, because like Steven Bartlett said before, I think Cody Sanchez said before, like basically like the people who kind of go above and beyond are the people who stand out in any workplace. And we've all, you and I have done corporate jobs, and it doesn't take a lot actually, but just being like really helpful, which sounds like a stupid thing, but just going slightly over and above is just amazing. And it, I just can't. So I'm really pleased that, like, obviously that's come through, and I'm delighted that Steve's, like, as nice as he seems, and hierarchy's such a funny thing, isn't it? Because sometimes, so I've got a bit of a thing, which is if someone has to tell you how busy and important they are, then neither of those things.
Yes.
And in my experience, the more successful someone is, like, the less they lean on that kind of hierarchy or power thing. So for me, it's a real red flag. If I meet someone who's supposed to be, you know, the bee's knees or whatever they're supposed to be at, and they come with that vibe, I'm like, no, it's disingenuous. It doesn't sit well with me. So
yeah.
I'm absolutely delighted.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so jealous for a start. Had I known that, I was like, I might have wheedled an invitation. But yeah, Stephen. Yeah, like Ali's entourage is 45 people. Sorry, like you just have to put up with it. But.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about the will thing. Like me and Amber were just this guy, like forever. If he asked for anything,
exactly
anything, I'm like, I will do whatever you need ever because you have gone out of your way to do this, and we are genuinely so grateful. So yeah, huge shout out. Like, not that you're going to be listening, not that your team is going to be listening, but Will, you are an absolute legend, and we are genuinely forever like indebted to you.
We should send this to him though, like, because I think
we should.
Like, it's one thing putting it out in the universe, isn't it? But we should be like, actually, just let you know we really did shout you out because we were.
That's a very good point.
And that's the thing about the creator industry, isn't it? Like, it's a small world, and actually, you don't know if he'll need a favour in a year, 2 years, 5 years, but at some point there'll be some situation, and just putting that good karma out there is just. So yeah, my top advice for anyone. We had a load of graduates start on Friday, which is always a bit like The Apprentice, and it just terrifies me because like, these kids are 21, and it's just like, oh my goodness. But it is the really small things about like what will stand you out is like actually, you're one of 400 graduates that's starting, but just be a little bit good at your job and just go over and above. It doesn't take a lot.
It really doesn't. It just honestly doesn't. I will finish gushing about Stephen for just one last thing is. When we were talking, and we took his book because he'd sent us an early copy of the Diary of a CEO, and we're like, it would be amazing if you could sign this for Ali, and we'll like just take some B-roll as well. And normally when guests sign their book, they might write a small message and then they'll just kind of sign it, or they'll just sign it. Completely fair. Never thought anything of it. Stephen actually sat there, and Barrett, like, this book is like this big, and he wrote a full page message for him. Like, actually took the time to, and I was like, that is amazing. Then he was like, then like me and Amber were fangirling, and we're like, hey, can we grab a couple of pictures? We were like, of course. Took pictures with us, and then he was kind of like, oh, I wish I had books for you guys. We actually might. So then he found 2 books to give to us. Like, he actually went out of his way to find 2 books to give to us, and then he wrote us each a message, equally long, equally personalised. So I'm just, again, didn't have to do. Absolutely could have stood up after the interview, done a bit of social stuff for us, and walked out. He had somewhere to be. Like, he had plans. He has a life. But no, he took the time. He spoke to us. He spoke to us as if he didn't have anywhere to be. He went out of his way. He took pictures with both me and Amber as well as Ali, and then wrote these super sweet, long messages in each of our books and gave us a book each, and then gave us a hug goodbye as he was leaving. And I'm just like, I said to Ali in the car, I was like, I'm sorry, Ali. Stephen is my new hero. And he said, mine too.
Yeah. We need to up our game here now,
I actually wasn't sure what to expect. I think I was a little bit similar to you in that you hear things like, you don't know the person, you have no idea what you're stepping into, and people can be so different and they can be so nice. We have that, to be fair, we've been so lucky with people that have come on a deep dive that some of them are like, pretty much all of them are lovely people, and some of them you just kind of get on with like nicer than the others. Like Julie Smith on Monday, just such a nice person to be around, was nice to everyone in the same way, came out, hung with us for lunch, kind of all of that stuff. Again, didn't have to do any of that. And also actually was kind enough to, so we did the deep dive in the morning where Ali was interviewing her, and this is the second time she's come on as well, so again, really didn't have to do any of this. And then in the afternoon she interviewed Ali for the book, so that we got a bit of stuff. Again, she just hung with us for the whole day, like, so, and again, at no point did she's got another 2.5 hour, 3 hour journey to go home. We didn't finish till 5 o'clock. And at no point did she like any of that. She hung around afterwards as well, took pictures, made sure we had all of the social stuff that we needed. And it's strange that those small things are things that we call out, but obviously we're in a place where we need to call those things out because it's not what you expect from anyone else. And it's just, I guess my point is, I had a great week. I saw some awesome people, and I'm so glad that there are humans like this in the world, and it just makes you feel better.
Yeah, and I think there's like 3 things that come out for me from that conversation. Firstly, like, it's like a shout out to past you, because like you could have sat in a corporate job, couldn't you? And you took a bit of a risk, and that was absolutely to have weeks like this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like that is why you did it. And to anyone who's listening about like, oh, should I stay in my safe corporate job? Safe corporate jobs are always going to be there. Like you can go back. Like I think if you're on the fence about thinking about it, like Bhav's week, that's shown you that could be your week, and like that's.
Yeah.
And although it's a great week, that's not the only time that will happen working with that Ali. Like there'll be equally great experiences that just pop up that you couldn't
Such
predict.
a good point.
I'd just say, anyone who's kind of, I'd be like, just go do it. And I think this is like the bad thing about the experiences. It's just like, and that's the thing about social media, isn't it? You don't really know, it's unintended consequences often. Like you put stuff out and you just don't know how or who it will connect with or whatever. But like, Ali, when he started making videos 4 or 5 years ago, did he think he'd be sat down in Steven Bartlett's like podcast or even like as a peer, as an equal, as a peer, not even, kind of whatever. So that's amazing. Secondly, I think the story about Steven, I'm really pleased because he tells a story about when he met someone and it wasn't like so great, and I think he's obviously really done that. But like the Cody Sanchez thing of like how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes.
So like that personalised message to me is like okay, that shows you that actually it's about impact, isn't it? And it's about taking like microcosms of time, but just to do that. And I think the third lesson, particularly for you in your role, is like you almost need that buffer in a day, don't you? Because so often with creators we kind of schedule them back, and there's no give in the schedule, and actually you need for moments of magic to happen, don't you? And that only happens kind of when you've got the flexibility to do that. So I'm sure Stephen ran late for something, Ali probably ran late for something, but like you need that, don't you? So when you're thinking about doing any schedule and stuff, like thinking about actually like how can we just make sure that we've got those moments to go for lunch, to spend an extra half an hour somewhere.
That's so true. And yes, Ali did miss his physio appointment, and I apologise to the physios. But
you can always get
worth it. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, actually that's a good point, like, because that in my head leads me on to time management and stuff, and it's like in the back of my mind I always like to keep those things free, like even a lunch, because you don't know who's going to rock up, and you're like, oh, could that turn into something? Even in the evening, you're right. Like it's just making sure. I mean, selfishly for me that I'm around for like cool people, but also that Ali has that buffer as well. But so going back to, I think we talked about this briefly last week of the whole videographer thing. So that is still in motion, and I spent there was more videography stuff happening this week. So we have another vlog in the bag, but it's taking up a lot of time. Which I think me and you knew it would. And it's cool because it means like I have a reason to be at places as well. And I'm like, actually, I'm just behind a camera and I'm learning so much, and I bloody love it.
Good.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And it's just like, I know that I'm better now than like 2 weeks ago, but I'm just like, how much better could I be? That this is cool. And actually, one point I want to flag is, side point, is that a lot of the footage we're taking is actually on my iPhone. So this is an iPhone 13 mini. And even I was like, so when we started, Ali was like, we can absolutely do iPhone vibes. Like it's easier, all of that stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll use yours because he's got like a 14 Pro or whatever. And he's like, what have you got? And it's like 13 mini. He's like, that's absolutely fine. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right. Logically, I know that that's fine. These cameras are like insane. So we are also recording a lot of the vlog on my iPhone and a lot of the B-roll on my iPhone. Yes, we have the Sony A7C for a lot of B-roll as well, but B-roll is just nicer. But Ali talking to camera hasn't, I don't think, talked to the camera once to a proper camera. He's basically either got my phone or his own phone. It's plugged into a DJI mic, and for anyone listening who cares about vlogging or this, or like even filming, the DJI mics are phenomenal. I don't have it on me; it's still at the studio. But
we'll link it.
Yes. Shit, I should make a list of these things. It's maybe 250, 300 quid. But if you are into that space, it is so bloody good. Yeah, okay, you can see it. It clips on. But it plugs directly into an iPhone. And I think there's a USB-C adapter. Anyway, the point is, with a phone, with this DJI, I can plug it in, Ali can vlog away. So super low friction. And I think we both had that in the back of our minds of like, okay, we don't want this to be like a pain in the ass. We want it to be easy. We want to be able to vlog at the drop of a moment's notice. And that just makes it so easy. So what was my point of all of this? So it was something. So the vlogging is happening and the videography is happening, and I'm learning how to take B-roll and stuff. Even when we were at Stevens, Ali was just like, oh, if you zoom in on your B-roll, like it looks infinitely better. I'm like, oh, cool. Like such a small point. Hadn't really thought it through. It was just, taking all this stuff. And it was cool to see our first edit. It was just the first draft of our first edit, but that was also helpful because you can kind of see the end process now. So although you can learn something week by week, it's not the same as being able to see the output and going, oh, this is what the editor needs. So I had a conversation with him really quickly, and he was like, establishing shots. And he like explained to me what these were. He was like, oh, do you know in like Suits, when they like go from one place to another, that kind of transition, they're like maybe leaving the office or they're going to another office. And you have that kind of pan or like that camera of where they're going or where they're leaving. He's like, those make a difference. So, for example, in week 1, we had sprint week. That was a week 1 of a vlog. And on the first day or whatever, we went to a team social. He was like, as you were going to the team social, instead of saying, this is where we're going, all you have to do is like say team social or something, and then you pan to where you had your team social and you just have an outdoor pic. I'm like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. So like there's little things like that I'm learning along the way, which is super, super cool and I love. Again, what was my point of all this? Yes, I guess my point was it's taking a little bit longer in my day than I expected. Even the footage uploading, like, hey, it took me like an hour and a half to get all the footage like off on Friday night. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to end up getting home late. And just trying to fit that in. And I know last week was a bit of an odd week, and then it was podcast batch filming week. I guess I'm saying there's a lot of stuff going on. And the question is, tips to manage that. When you know it's basically a long day, you know you're going to get back at the end of the day and you're still going to have to like blitz through emails or whatever, which is fine. I have zero objection to this at all. It's just like, hey, small tweaks or
week, like you've got no objections.
I've had an amazing week. I have zero complaints. If I had to do emails at 2 a.m., I would be happy to do them at 2 a.m. But I'm just wondering, if there are systems. I love a system. Just things. I know we spoke about like before doing that footage at the end of the day, which I hadn't been doing, which is why I had a bulk at the end of the week. Yeah. But I just thoughts and tips on kind of trying to keep on top of. Yeah, the videography stuff, plus being around for other people to help and jump into stuff, and then my own, like, in theory, day job on top of all of that.
And then the actual job,
Yeah.
Which is always the thing, I think. It's like, everyone's like, oh, and then the day job. Like, it's like, I have this conversation loads. So I think, in some ways, you answered your own question, which is around the why.
Go me.
Well done. Just self-question. You barely need me here.
Please don't leave me.
Please leave me alone, please. Don't leave me my thoughts. So, like, about the videography thing, like, sometimes you need to know the context of what you're doing and why. And particularly when people are handing off tasks to you, often it can seem either like, because you don't really know what's involved, it seems like a massive mountain that you're like, I don't even know how to tackle that, or oh, that'll take me 5 minutes, and it ends up taking two hours, and like you haven't really kind of. So I think if and when anyone's picking up tasks, it's always like understand the why and the context, and have a conversation about like impact and stuff, just so that in your own head you can kind of prioritize it. And I often find when I think something's going to be a massive task, I'm like, just do half an hour, and then you can take a break, or you can stop, or you cannot do it. And actually, just that activation energy of getting you going, then either actually it takes half an hour and like you're done and it's perfect, or you've at least broken the back of it, and then you're like, okay, I'm in it. And actually sometimes after that half an hour has lapsed, you're like, actually I'm into it, I can just do this for as long as it needs to be. But I think sometimes the kind of procrastination of, oh god, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I know we talked before, but like always like just what's the next right thing to do. Like I don't need to have all the answers, I don't need to know all the endpoints, but just like what's the next right thing to do. So I think that. And then I think on a more practical level, probably habit stacking. So, for instance, when I answer emails, I upload yesterday's footage. Or, like, something which is, like, symbiotic, which is, like, when I do this, I also do this. And so that you can start to habit stack. So that, A, you don't drop the ball on anything, but also you're kind of maximising your time. Like, while I'm focusing on the emails, that can be plugging away in the background and I don't need to worry about it. Because there's nothing more frustrating than being like, oh, but I need to do something on my phone and I'm uploading and I don't want to interrupt it or whatever. So if you can kind of have those distinct blocks of, like, when this happens, this also happens, then that might be helpful.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a ton of sense, actually. Because I will either do emails or I will do the other thing. And then I'm like, oh, now I'm sitting around. So, I would have probably done my emails and then looked at footage and been like, well, now I can't do anything else. But actually, emails is such an easy thing to dip in and out of if I'm doing the footage. Okay, so that's a great shout. I think, the other thing I did this week, which hopefully will help me going forward, is just put a little bit of a system in place with footage. So we've got basically the YouTube stuff, we've got deep dive stuff for the podcast, and then we've got like vlog stuff. So I ordered a bunch more SD cards and stuff and SSDs. So now, in theory, each area has its own SD cards. It has its own SSDs. And I guess, I've drawn it out in my notebook, but it will eventually, I think, go into a Notion page. But there's basically a 3-step process of like, have I got all the footage off one of the cameras? Because again, for the vlog, it's either shot on Ali's camera, my camera, the actual like Sony A7C, or the Insta360. So there's and if we've taken any pictures, that'll be on the Leica. So there's like 4 or 5 different places the footage could be. So it's bringing that all onto an SSD. It's then getting that footage onto the Google Drive. And then, I mean, that's fairly straightforward at that point. But like with the podcast, which isn't all me, to be fair, like Emma did most of this, but like it's making sure that we have the SD card backed up onto the SSD. Then the SSD has to go to the Google Drive, but the internet at the studio is rubbish. So somebody else has to do it. But there was no one with fast internet in this week. So I've basically got a 2 terabyte SSD that needs uploading to the Google Drive, that when I plugged in and did like one episode, it was telling me it was 24 hours. I'm like, okay, somebody else needs to do this because my internet is decent at home and it's basically telling me it's taking a week. But yeah, then you need to make sure you wipe the SD cards as well. And it's basically that back and forth. It's so admin-y and annoying that it's just that stop-start thing. So yeah, there'll be a Notion page, obviously, so we can check things off. But that's actually a really good point. I like that. Emails, footage. Okay. Emails, footage. That's easy.
So what I think I'd do is go through your day or your week and be like, okay, what are all the batch tasks that need to happen? Yeah. Okay, what can be paired up? Like what can be happening independently? And if it's just like the last thing I do is start uploading footage of an evening, and then by the time I get back in the next morning, it'll be kind of uploaded. Like, just thinking about how you can maximise downtime almost, like whatever. And I think probably also taking that lesson from Steven Bartlett this week and being like, okay, looking ahead, what are the extra touches that are really going to make magic for someone here? Like, have we got someone coming in? Can we get a gift box? Like, what are the little touches that are really going to elevate, like, you in your role, but then also just the whole experience of kind of working with Ali Abdel? So, like, okay, I'm going to be vlog filming next week. Okay, what are the actual things that I really want to make sure I capture? Because although a lot happens spontaneously, a lot doesn't happen spontaneously.
Yes.
And you kind of know what you might need to capture or what you might need to do to kind of really give that magic. So I think that's the other thing for people really on top of their game. It's like, okay, preempting what are the kind of...
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, because that's the other thing that I realised at the end of this week is how important planning is. And because I'm in the office, how important planning is, unfortunately or fortunately, at the weekend.
Yeah.
Because once you're in on a Monday morning, it's go, go, go until you leave on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, actually, I'm not going to get the space. What I actually ended up doing a couple of days this week is going to a WeWork for the first hour of the day. And actually, that was really helpful because it was like, I'm out and I'm ready to work, but I'm actually not in the people kind of like conversation-y thing. Because as soon as you're in the office, you end up having these conversations. But yeah, that planning and that prepping for what you need when is so important. Like, had I been a little bit more on it on the vlog, which, to be fair, like, I'm not gonna beat myself up over because I'm still learning.
It's a learning process,
right? Like, and now I know a bit more of like how important simple and stupid things that are just so obvious, but how important the intro and the outro is. Like, they're your kind of two like anchor points. So make sure without fail that you have those two, and then plug in all the other bits. But yeah, I think planning is super, super important. Is the biggest takeaway I took away this week.
I think planning and reflection. Like, so I like to plan on a Sunday afternoon / evening. So everyone can on, well, you probably don't, but like a lot of people get that back to work, like, oh, back to school kind of feeling on a Sunday night. And it's a bit of like a wasted time. So I'm like an hour actually on a Sunday for me to plan my next couple of weeks. And even just to make sure you don't drop the ball on stuff. So actually, and to like, oh, someone's birthday's upcoming, right? Let me make sure I like diarise that, get the present, do whatever. But it just means that in the week, it's less stressful for me because, as you say, like Monday to Friday is like go, go, go. You're reacting to other people's priorities. Like, you're never sure what's coming in. And actually, if you've got that good grounding of planning, you can then be like, okay, I know that all the major things that I need to do are kind of in there.
Yeah.
Or I've thought about them, or they're going to happen. Yes. And it just takes that stress off. I think a lot of people with work, the workload stress comes from, you've got X amount to do yourself, and then other people just are throwing stuff at you, whether it's emails, whether it's like messages, whether or not it's a crisis or whatever. And of course you want to react to that, but you don't want to lose sight of what you need to do, and you need to make sure those foundations are there. The other thing is a reflection at the end of the week and just being like, what could have been better about that? Like, because I think we're so busy doing a lot of the time, we don't ever think, okay, what would have been made that 5% better or 10% better? And actually, then when you're doing your planning for the next time that happens, and you're like, oh, actually, I know. And because you're talking about earlier about like the chimp brain and the human brain and the computer brain, and it's all in there, but we just need time sometimes to pull it back out of our brains. So I think also just thinking about, okay, like, what would have been even better?
That's actually a very, very good point. Yeah, because I through the week, I was like, focus. There are some things you can do when you get home tonight.
Yeah.
There are some things that you can do at the weekend, but there are a couple of things that you can only do in the office. Like, so stop faffing and do the things that you can only do in the office, i.e. cleaning out the podcast room. Like, I need to be in the damn office to do the thing, right? Create an inventory list. I need to be in the office to create that list. And even when I was doing footage on Friday, like, I stupidly started like transferring stuff around. I'm like, I can do this on my own afterwards. What I need to do first is clear the SD cards. Why am I messing around? And actually there's a really good point, because I go, what does perfect look like? Well, perfect looks like if I had all the time in the world, I would transfer this footage from this SSD to this SSD, clear this one, have this one ready, then import the SD card footage into this, and then wipe it, and then blah, blah, blah. In theory, I had about half an hour, and what I should have done, and to be fair, it was fine in the end, but what I should have done is plug the SD cards in, backed it up, got them back in the cameras, and then done anything else. And again, footage, I could have done that at the weekend. Like, not something I needed to mess around with during the day. I mean, it was fine, but yeah, it's those small things of actually focus on the actual important task that needs to be done and don't mess around with the other stuff.
Yeah. It's like, you know, the analogy about the jar of rocks. It's like, put those big rocks in first. The sand, which is your emails or your whatever footage, you know, like that can be done at any time, but actually get the rocks in.
I'm so bad at that still. I still find myself, and I think it does coincide with energy levels, which I think we were talking about last week as well, because I know, and I can't remember what day it was probably Thursday, there was like an hour where I was probably just in emails and I was just refreshing it. And actually looking back, I think it was because I was just a little bit tired. And it was like, that's all my brain can do. But there was probably something else, footage, that I could have done in that like dead time. But because it got to the dead time, and then when I'm dead, like I don't have the power to think, I'm just like, oh. And if you get distracted, it's just like, oh, now I'm back doing the email again. Versus I could have blitzed through that 10 minutes, like 2 hours later. And actually I could have got something else done in that time. But yeah, how do you do it? How much of that needs to be like, to your point, like the default thing of like, when I do emails, I do footage, versus like, is there a way of going, actually, I'm dead. I can't think of anything else. I'm literally just clicking on these things. Like, how do you break that cycle in the moment?
Yeah, so for me, I've got better at realising when I am dead. And now if I'm like, I'm dead, I'm just going to go, I'm either going to try and grab a nap, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to do something that's going to completely energise me. Because as you say, okay, you've got an hour. I could either sit here for an hour and chunk through these emails, or I could go and do something else for half an hour, have a nap, have a walk, and blitz through it in 20 minutes. And then I'm 10 minutes ahead of where I was, and I feel better for it. So I think I've now got much better. And of course that's, I mean, it's not, if you're in an office, not super easy just to go for a nap, is it? But
can't have a nap in the office.
I mean, some offices, but like, generally frowned upon.
Probably not great.
But do you go and get up, have a walk around the office, grab a cup of coffee, and then like just do something like else for 5 minutes to kind of energise you? So I think for every person, you need to kind of work out what your energising things.
Yeah.
And when you're flat. And also how you structure your day. So most people have a dip of energy early afternoon.
Yeah.
Don't make your most critical time that early afternoon thing. So if you can, again, it comes back to, you know, time blocking and calendar matching and all of those types of things. But, you know, for some people actually, like, just have meetings in the afternoon, because actually they don't take that much energy, because you're generally sitting there, like, interacting with other people, and that feels relatively natural for most people. So, you know, but actually, if you've done, and also it's much better. We've all had that thing where you've been in meetings all day and then you've still got your work to do. Actually, if you've done your work in the morning, you can just spend the day and the rest of the day in meetings, and great. Like, that kind of ticks it off, doesn't it? So I think some preemptive stuff, like, you know, when perhaps you're going to have energy, but also be realistic about your calendar, because when you've been filming a week for a podcast week, actually, we're not going to get, emails aren't going to get done until the beginning of next week. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Again, it's that perfection thing of like, we're not robots, we can't do the same thing a day. And also, you're not in an industry that needs that. Okay, yes, if you're a surgeon, I want you to be doing good stuff every day. But, you know, if you're not, then actually, could that wait till a different time? Yeah. Yeah,
that's true. And actually, Ali is 100% the same. He's like, all I need is 5 minutes for you to scan the emails in the morning to make sure there isn't anything important. And if there isn't, that's cool. Like, don't sit there and reply. Just make sure there isn't anything that actually needs to be actioned or is urgent. That's a 5-minute scan. You do not actually have to go through your emails. Actually, this is something that Tiago Forte says, or I've heard him say, with emails is, so I find myself, if I'm going through, I will like generally keep on top of my emails. So I'll see them, like I don't have notifications on, but I can see them in the lock screen for iOS users. so I'll look at them and I'll go, just ignore, like I can deal with that later. But if I'm on the computer, I will just start like working through them. And he's like, actually, you should only do your emails when you actually have time to work through them. Nice. Like, so don't sit down and like start and then going, I need to do that later. I need to do that later. I need to, because that is now taking up energy in your mind and is taking up mental space. So actually set aside the hour, the half an hour, the 20 minutes. And when stuff comes in, you can actually action it. Now, obviously there's going to be some stuff that is like a project or whatever, fine. But for the most part, you can do the next steps on those things in that time. So actually, when you're going to your email, be like, have the intention to be actually this is time to do the emails.
Resolve, not just like acknowledge.
Just yeah, exactly. And I think that's because I will start doing them, and then I'll get halfway through, and then I'll get distracted, and it's like, but I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that because actually that's going to take me 5-10 minutes each. Whereas if I had the hour, it's like actually I can work through these as I'm going through them, and then emails are done. And actually, then I only probably need like 2 10-minute check-ins or 5-minute check-ins for the rest of the day. And emails are actually done. So instead of doing that in the morning, doing that in the afternoon, maybe that's the post-lunch. Yeah. Like, I am just going to do an hour on emails. Yeah. But as stuff comes up, I'm not going to be like, oh, I need to like find 10 minutes to do this. It's like, okay, I'm just going to do the thing while I'm here.
Yeah. And maybe for you, it's like emails in your head become 2 different tasks. So there's email scanning and there's like replying to emails. Yes. So rather than like doing emails, which in your head is like, I have to do both of those things, it's like, okay, email scan here, here, and here. Okay, this is a block when I reply.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. And emails also mean footage uploading. So I can get footage going and then I can blitz through emails.
Yeah. And set yourself a time would be like, right, 50 minutes on my phone or whatever your block is. Okay, I'm going to do emails for 50 minutes.
I like that. And yeah, actually, I was talking to Jess, who is Pat Flynn's EA and has been for like, I don't know, 10 or 15 or 17 even years, like for a very long time. And that's actually something that she said is that she always works with Pat's emails from oldest to newest, which again seems like perfectly obvious, but she always works oldest to newest. And she's like, a 72-hour turnaround is perfectly acceptable. Like, you do not have to reply to these emails immediately. That's somebody else's task.
Yeah.
Just because they have sent you an email does not mean you have an obligation to reply to said email. That kind of stuck with me, and that's such a good point. And I'm not saying I'm purposely going to leave people for 72 hours, but that whole like have cutoffs, because basically you could spend your whole day in emails. I mean, probably in any job, to be honest, but like especially in like as like in this one. But yeah, so the whole set yourself a timer, whether that's 25 minutes, whether that's 55 minutes, get as far as you can. At least you know you've gone from the oldest to newest.
Exactly.
Which is kind of how people work anyways. Like my problem was...
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say the problem is because email is naturally sorted newest to oldest, that sometimes you just do default to it. But that's just like, duh, that's kind of obvious.
I mean, it isn't. But I think the thing is that particularly for your companies, you don't really do business on email. So probably when you're in your corporate job, a lot of people's like day to day, I'll be emailing backward and forward someone, but it's almost like a live conversation, but because it needs to be done in the moment. But for your emails, they're not. Like, you've got Slack, you've got Notion, you've got lots of other platforms where the real stuff happens.
Yeah.
And actually the vast majority of your emails aren't from people within the core, they're people external to the company. So yeah, absolutely, there can be a 72 turnaround, like, if not longer. Like, a lot of it isn't necessarily, if Steven Bartlett wants to get hold of you, he's not going to email you, is he?
No.
So actually.
Yeah, that is so very true. Yeah, I think I've always
like. If he wants to email us, we'd be delighted to have an email from him.
Please email. You can email me. Yeah. You can email me anytime.
Exactly.
Here's my number. You can also message me. Yeah, I think I've always naturally done that with my own email. I think it almost needed the reset of like, this is Ali's emails now, and I've like, you go back into old ways because you're like, oh shit, this isn't my email. But it's like, why is this any different? And yeah, there are people that do not need a reply. Like within time, there are more important things that need to be done.
Yeah, there are more needle moving things, and this is like the whole thing about a job like yours, isn't it? What is the biggest impact thing? Like, what is the biggest lift that I can do right now?
Yeah,
like that email, very unlikely to matter at all.
Yeah,
really.
Completely. And going back to that, like, what is taking mental energy in Ali's brain, and therefore, what can I do to be like, I got this. Like that could be the 10 minutes on creating a Notion page to just be like, this is under control, and you can see everything that's going on. I think that's the very slight mindset shift that I've like done in the last few weeks of like, normally I would revert to this task, but actually I know that if I do this task, it will put Ollie's mind at ease. Do this task. Like, it's irrelevant of what you think that priority level is. It's like, this is the one. And it almost comes back to like, I don't mean like playing games or politics, but you know, when you're working for someone like a manager or whatever, it's like, what are the things that are going to put them at ease to make them know that you're working on the right things? It's like, do those things. Okay, it might mean that you need to leave a task that actually you want to get done for a little bit later, but their visibility and what they think is the more important is getting done. And therefore, from their point of view looking in, they're like, that person is on it. Like, I know that person is on it, and you deal with the other stuff in the background.
And that's what I'm always surprised at. So, like, in my day job, I'm a partner, and like that comes with a certain level of like kudos and hierarchy. But I'm like, if say one of my team doesn't reply to me by email for a few days, I'm like, what are they doing to clients? Like, it becomes that thing. Like, you're right about, you need to kind of, there is a, for your boss anyway, or for people, key stakeholders, there is that putting that mind to us. Yeah, because if you're not replying to me, if you don't think I'm important enough to reply to, who actually makes that list? And it's kind of a bit of a weird thing. So I agree, like, there is a bit of stakeholder management in terms of, okay, who needs a response quite quickly, but that's probably not that many people in that world.
Yeah, because what is important to us is like the BAU is not what's top of their mind. So you might be like, guys, I've got this thing to deal with that needs to be done, and it's like, but actually, had you taken 15 minutes to do something to put their mind at ease, to go, this is in progress, I'm now done with this, I'm now going to go and deal with the file or whatever, like my BAU. It's like, oh shit, that actually ticks both boxes. There was something that came up the other day of like, I could do this, which I think is probably more important and needs to be done, or I could do this, which I know is going to put like Ollie's mind at ease, just for the fact that it is done. Actually, it's probably just here on this list. I was like, there are 6 things on this list that need to be done, and I know that from my point of view, I want to get. I can't even remember which one it was, but it was one of these. For my peace of mind, I want to get this done because then it's out of my mind, like the box is ticked. But I know what is actually more important to Ollie is to tick this box.
Exactly.
I think it was like this channel audit thing is like something was broken for the PTYA guys, and I was like, this is going to take me 10 minutes. I need to do the thing, and then it's done. And I was like, they can wait. Because this other thing that might take me 15, 20 minutes is actually what's going to be more important. And if Ollie turns around and be like, not that he did, but like, had he turned around and was like, what are we doing on that? I would have known I would get on it. So it's still on my list and it hasn't dropped off the list. But I'd be like, oh shit, I decided to do the channel audit thing for the thing. And it's like, actually that wasn't needle moving, because it goes back to what is needle moving, because it's like, actually that is functioning, even though it's not fixed. It is still functioning. And I think that's what I'm learning.
And I think you raise a good point, but like really good PAs and EAs can preempt like almost the thought processes of the people they work with and for, to know what are going to be the things that will irritate and or pop back up their mental to-do list and what perhaps isn't. So it is a bit of a symbiotic relationship in terms of everyone's priority list will look different, even though the tasks might be the same. You need to work out whoever you're working with, what are the things that are really going to irritate them. If you start taking those away, then it all becomes a lot easier for everyone, doesn't it?
Yeah, so true. It's probably a realization I'm now having that I like had working with previous people would have been good, because like that's actually pretty important.
It's so, and I had this conversation so much recently, which is like, it's all about understanding people, isn't it? Like, and back to what makes good, like people who are good at doing things. It's actually if they can just like unlock your thought processes, your patterns, your whatever, and preempt. Like I'm lucky, like the team that I work with, we say like family, because it's just shorthand for basically we've known each other for a really long time, but we know each other's faults and weaknesses. We know, but also we know where people will go to, like in the decision making process. Like he'll come from it from this standpoint, she'll come from it from this standpoint, and we kind of need to get to the middle. And it is, but that is all psychology. That is all just people. Like it's nothing to do with the actual business or what we do. And the more you can unlock people, I think the more successful you'll be in any way, shape or form of your life.
It's so true.
I guess we all need to feel like our needs are being met, don't we? Whether or not it's in relationships or at work or whatever, we need to feel like that. Clients, customers, whatever,
Yeah, and annoyingly it can feel like you have to play the game. But actually, I like, it's just people, and it's expectation management and it's people management, and that is important. Because you're right, people want to feel heard and seen. And it's like, cool. this person has been saying this is important to me, and you've gone, I know this is important to you, I'm doing this thing.
Exactly. I know this is going to irritate you or stress you out or whatever.
Yeah. Isn't that what you would want somebody else to do?
Yeah.
I actually think it is hard sometimes if you haven't managed somebody else.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing of like, I just don't understand it. And then you like kind of manage somebody else and you're like, oh, now from this point of view, I can see why that person does this and why like those things that I'm probably doing are annoying me, like now that somebody else is doing them. And I think it does, there is like a switch flip in that. It's the same as like when you're like making YouTube videos versus not making YouTube videos. It's like, oh, just do the thing. And then it's the same as like giving feedback to somebody on their YouTube videos and expecting feedback. Like you could sit there and be like, I want feedback. Then the second you start giving feedback to somebody, you're like, oh, and it unlocks this whole thing, which is why we always say, guys, give feedback to other people, because like, yes, it's a self-lust thing, but it's actually also a selfish thing because you learn so much more by giving feedback. And I think it's maybe a similar thing of like, actually, you just need to put yourself in their shoes. Like when you have somebody like working for you, you kind of like, oh, I need this. Why aren't they doing this? And you that's probably what you're doing because you are saying that this is more important because of my list. And yes, obviously sometimes you're right, but sometimes you need to tick the box and play the game, so to speak. But it's not really playing the game. It's like people.
Yeah, it's just unlocking people's puzzles, I think, isn't it? Like because ultimately everything will still get done. You'll just do it in a different order and a different way. Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily playing the game. I think it's just being able to get the best out of who you're working with, but also that they will then regard you as positive. Going back to Will earlier, you know, like he wasn't trying to play the game. He was just like, what can I do to make this process easier for everyone? Okay, great. These are the things that I can contribute to that and make it better. So
yeah, and I guess it kind of also comes back to that the dispersonality thing a little bit as well. Like if you know that the people you're working with like stuff in a certain way or are a certain way, then you can tailor things specifically. Like I when I was at Avon, it was just like, oh, like a lot of my managers through the years were Reds, and like I don't know how we'll have to do an episode on this specifically. This might not make a lot of sense for people, but like they were basically just get to the point, and I'm the kind of person that wants to give them the full detail and all the background and let them know why I've come to the conversation, so they feel confident and they're like, just top line it for me. And it was like that was such a mindset shift, but I knew going into those things, I'm like, okay, Red, actually I need to top line it. And then I need to appendix all the details for my comfort level to know that it's there and say, look, I have given it to you, but it's here, but not to bombard them with the information up front. It's like, actually, all you need to know is this, but I have given you all my background here. I would love if you read through it, but top line, this is what you need to know. And that's actually super important.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who haven't, most people probably haven't come across dispersonality testing, just a different type of personality test, which puts people into 4 categories. Reds, who are very action focused. Yellows, which are, they like things to be fun, which I like to think I fall into. Blues, who are very detailed, and greens are very much about like consensus, environment, equality, those types of things. So most people have a dominant colour and then like sub-colours. Most people are a mixture. You'll very rarely meet someone who's all red or whatever. However, when you can start to work out what their style is, you can start to work out what is important to them. So as you say, the information will be the same, but you will present it in a different way. And for a lot of this, what you're talking about is about effective communication, isn't it? Yeah. It's not necessarily about changing what you do, it's changing how you present what you do. And I'm having conversations with a few people around that in terms of, oh, I'm doing all these things and no one notices. And it's like, well, because you're not presenting it in the way that they can absorb it. So actually what you need to do is get better at representing. And I think women are like particularly often hide their light under a bushel and don't do that extra step, which is like, how do I communicate this effectively to others in a way that they will get on board with it.
Yeah, it is that whole communication thing is so important. Like I feel like that is the underlying thing to everything is communication. But you're right, it's effective communication, and it really, really does make a difference. But actually, I think we should do an episode on DISC. Actually, I think it's super important and super helpful. But that whole point of like, and yes, I agree that it maybe is a little harder for women. But like, hey, I've done this week. Like I was talking to Ali and I was like, oh, maybe I think we agreed that I would end up sending him a daily message to say what I'd done that day. Haven't done it because I completely forgot about it. But I was thinking about it like yesterday or something, and I was like, maybe I'll do an end of week wrap. And I was mentally putting this list together of all the things I'd done. And I was like, where do I draw the line? Like, what's too small of a task to put in? Like, if I had a conversation with someone like, but was important, do I put it in? Do I not put it in? And I was like, I obviously ended up not sending the thing or doing the thing, but like still on the list. But I was it just felt weird. It's like, am I now telling you all of the tiny things that I do? Like what is and to your point, I think women are more likely to overthink it, and guys are just going to be like, I did all of this shit, like, look at me, I'm amazing. And I'm like, oh, like, do I just call out the big stuff? Do I call it, like, what do I need to give the guy? And it feels weird to say, hey, look at me, this is everything I've done this week. But also without it, he's not going to know all of the things. He's only going to know some of the things that were like that he saw, but he's not going to know all the other stuff that obviously just happened in the background.
Yeah, so two things. So firstly, I think you should build this into your first thing in the morning routine. So I think what you should do is recap the previous day and then be like, these are my priorities for today. So it's part of your planning process. Okay. But rather than trying to do it at the end of the day when you're like energy levels and like it's like another thing before I can go home, I'm like, right, first thing, that's what I'm going to do. Like, now I've slept on it and kind of reflected what were the major things. Second thing, have a conversation with Ali. What does he want to know?
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Okay, do you want chapter and verse? Do you want highlights? Do you want the top 3 things that I think were really important about yesterday and the top 3 things I'm focusing on today? Like, what do you want? Like, he's a yellow red, isn't he? So like, what does he want? He wants something that's quite entertaining. And to the point, he does not
write him a story.
Yeah, he does not want chapter and verse. He wants but he might be really interested. Like, what did you learn yesterday? Like, what? Like, he will be interested more in the kind of story around it, but not necessarily like there were 427 emails, of which 426 were like he won't want that. Yeah. But have a chat with him. What does he want to know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Rather than you trying to second guess it, like just ask
him. I feel like he might have answered the question at the time. I just don't remember the answer.
That's fine. He won't mind repeating.
But I get. But you're right. Actually, I like the recapping first thing in the morning because actually it helps me set the priority, and it also holds me a little bit accountable. And at the end of the day, I can say I didn't get this done because of this, and actually, therefore, I don't need to go back and say. I then don't have to overthink it because if it took 2 hours to solve the thing, I'm like, this didn't get done because of this, and it automatically wraps it up to say, okay, cool. I've like told you what I've done. By default, by saying also what I haven't done.
Exactly. And also it might be nice for you to have like, because in a job like yours, you're doing 100 things in a day and it often can feel like you're not really getting anywhere. But actually if you have that morning recap, which is like, actually, no, like I smashed those 3 things yesterday. This is what I really want to focus on today. It will help you as well.
Yes. Okay, cool. I'm not going to do the weekly recap for last week because I think I'm going to add pressure and then I'm going to end up making it a thing.
You're going to make it perfect.
Yeah, 100%. I'm then going to list out everything, and then I'm going to prioritize it, and then I'm going to get rid of stuff, and it's going to be like a whole hour task.
I'm going to like do this
completely, and it's unnecessary. Daily. But okay, fun. I'm just going to start this from tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, and maybe I'll just have a line like still on my radar.
Yeah.
So that it's just like, hey, I haven't forgotten about this. This hasn't dropped off.
Yeah.
Like this is on the radar.
Just to let you know, I'm going to get to that thing on Thursday.
Like, yes. Yeah. Okay. Actually, like. Maybe there is a top 3 priority for the week thing at the start of the week because I'm not going to have a recap necessarily.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, okay, FYI, this is on my radar for this week, today. And then that also, because the other thing I like about that, and we've talked about this, is it again then gives him a chance to say, actually, this is either not a priority anymore or there is another priority, and it starts that conversation of going, okay, cool.
Yeah, and him for to go, actually, unless you do that, then Amber can't do her thing, or like someone else can't do their thing. And you're like, oh, okay, right, I didn't realise that. Back to that why. Okay, I didn't realise that this was going to be important. So actually, or as important, therefore I'll bump it on my to-do list and stuff.
Yeah. So true. Nice.
So that's going to be your new habit for this week. So habit stacking. So looking through your week in terms of like, okay, what can I do when I'm doing A, I can do B. And then also morning, daily looms or however you're going to do it in terms of like just updating Ali and stuff. And I think this is the conversation I keep having is work out what is the outcome that Ali wants from those updates.
Yeah.
And make that your focus rather than thinking, I'm just going to talk about what I've done and I don't really think anyone's that interested or I don't want to look like I'm showing off. Like it's not. It's back to communication. It's about feeding his needs. At the moment, you're not really doing it because you don't really see a purpose.
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't think it is. It is like more top level than less top level. I think because I made it weekly in my head, I was just like...
Weekly's huge, isn't it? You do 400 things in a week.
This is the thing. And I was like, I know this was an off week because I almost feel like I didn't get that much done, but I know what I did. And it's like, here's the stuff. But anyway, I was overthinking it. It's completely unnecessary. The week is done.
Yeah.
I draw a line. I know roughly what he wants on a daily basis. He just wants to know that things are taking along.
Exactly.
That's all he wants is peace of mind. And it just needs to be a message. It doesn't need to be a loom. It's like, hey, this is on my radar. This is what's happening. A little bit of progress check or whatever. Like, yeah, I know what the message would look like.
So you could either do that on your walk into work.
Yeah.
As you're like, you could just record something, or if you're at a WeWork or whatever, and just be like, before I leave the WeWork, I need to do that.
Yeah, I like it being the first thing because it actually helps me plan my day, which is important. And to do it out of the office is also important. So whether that's on the train up on a Monday or in a WeWork first thing in the morning or right at the end of the day. I'm never going to do it at the end of a work day, but I can probably do it at the end of a day, like before bed, because then I've had my like few hours away from work, and I can come back to it. But no, I think that's super interesting, and I will keep an eye on other places I can habit stack. So email and footage, and then I'll kind of see what else pops up in the week,
and maybe so maybe first thing, I mean, obviously it'll be less of a thing once you guys go digital, but in terms of like, will I be needing to order lunch? Always have like a mini checklist of things that like are going to pop in, like, will I need to order lunch for everyone today? Will I need to do this? Will I need to do that? And then you can kind of yes, no, and then like, then you know also, what is going to take some time later in the day.
I do love a checklist.
Am I going to need to film B-roll? Am I going to need to order lunch? Am I going to need to sort logistics out for something? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do this?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point because, I started making a checklist, I think, when we spoke like 3-4 weeks ago. And we had that like catch up of just like have a weekly checklist and a daily checklist, like a morning, like a startup checklist and a shutdown, like almost routine thing. I think that needs to be revisited. I do like the idea of a checklist because, because when I'm in the office, I like forget things, and actually I need to maybe that is my reset point, like 3 times a day of like first thing in the morning, you look at the checklist, lunchtime or just before lunch or just after lunch, you look at the checklist, or maybe even both. And then end of day, you look at the checklist. And actually that is the one thing I come back to. That is my card, so to speak. And on that, it has these things.
Like they're almost anchors for you in the day in terms of like, so make sure stuff doesn't run away from you. But like, these are my 3 anchor points. I would do first thing in the morning after lunch, and then like before I leave. Like what are all the things that kind of, and back to like so let's think about like those moments of joy or like the surprise thing with Steven Bartlett. If you know that like there's 8 people in filming whatever today, at 10 o'clock, if you say, right guys, we're going to be ordering lunch from this place and it's going to be here at 12:30, give me your suggestions, rather than at 12 o'clock everyone going, oh, we're getting lunch, and like it just, again, it's like you're on top of your game, you know what you're doing, you've kind of systemized all this stuff. So
yeah I mean, lunch, luckily, like I start getting hungry around 11, so the phone is being passed around relatively early because I'm like, food.
Come on, people, let's get this priority.
So I feel like lunch.
Not so much, but
not so. But I like the anchor points because I do. I started been doing it like in my to-do list of like my to-do list like on my computer. Like basically, so I use Thing 3 for anyone that gives a crap, which is an iOS app. But I actually use that day as like I plan the day in there just really quickly. Like this is actually almost too like. I can't, even on a Saturday, I'll be like, right, go for a walk, do this. So, the thing I love about that is there's no times allocated. I hate it because I hate it when it becomes time blocking. But I'm like, here are the things I need to do. Actually, roughly in order, I need to go to WeWork. I need to go for a walk. I need to like order lunch. And here are the like 2 main things that I need to do. And I don't do like business as usual. So I don't necessarily do clearing emails unless it's a big task that actually needs a special block. But, I can very easily build in checklists into that. I think that is the thing that I want, that just because in the office it's so easy to get distracted, and I do get distracted. And those anchor points are so important. It's what I've been thinking about, but I hadn't quite thought about it like that. Of just like, okay, cool, you're in the morning, almost a little flow chart, but like start with checklists because I think it will build up over time. Of just like, cool, have you planned the vlog? So, but those first 2 hours of the day worked really well when I was working from home, because I did my checklist. They've gone out the window now, but actually if I revert to my checklist of like AM, lunch, PM, and on that will be things like upload footage, okay, that sounds like a good plan.
Nice.
I like this. I will build this, and I will think about more things where I can habit stack. There's nothing immediately coming to mind. I don't know if you have any suggestions of where habit stacking could happen.
I think probably just look through when you're either planning your day a week and be like, okay, what naturally kind of goes together here. So maybe it's like something that I need to, I guess I'd probably break it down, like what can kind of run without me doing stuff, i.e. uploading footage, and then what needs me to be involved, and then pair those two things. So like, what can I throw out there, and then that's like that just ticks along, and then what do I need to be in the detail of, because you can't do two detailed things at once.
Yes.
But you can do one of the other. But maybe just kind of again, like at the end of the week, okay, what could have reflect on. So what was it trying to inarticulately say is you're probably not going to get it right first time. This is a kind of evolution thing. However, as part of your reflection at the end of the week, be like, okay, actually I could have matched those together and that would have worked, or I could have done that while I was doing this, and look for those opportunities to identify.
Okay. Yeah.
Because your weeks look quite different as well. So like obviously podcast week looks quite different to this week, which will look quite different too. Or we're filming those for the YouTube channel or like whatever. So it is going to kind of be a bit of an evolution, which will look different to sprint week. So
yeah, that's a good point. But you're right. There will be the daily checklist that happen every day, and I think the bit that's slightly thrown me is just the videographer stuff, because it does need a bit of an extra level of planning, as well as making sure I'm getting the shots and not getting distracted when I need to go and get the shots, because I will. So even that being on the anchor list of like, remember the bloody vlog, is enough of a check-in. Because I do like leaving that slack in the day. For those moments that just happen of like, hey, we're going for lunch, and you know that if you're going for lunch, it's going to be a 2.5 hour slot, and therefore you need to make sure that you haven't, because you don't need to make sure, but I'm the kind of person that like FOMO and stuff, and I'm like, no, actually I want to be there, but also that stuff comes out of that you just don't you don't know, and actually being in those conversations is actually incredibly valuable, and it's one of those things that I actually want to be part of, because that's where, like, if you're there for lunch and Ali is like thinking strategically, of course you want to be involved because you want to understand how he's talking and how he's thinking. So it is actually valuable for me being there. It's just, how do I make sure my day is planned to make sure it allows for said slack, and I still tick the things off the list. And
I speak to a lot of women, particularly in the corporate world, around this, because often have other responsibilities or like have hard closes about times they need to leave and stuff, and they don't plan any slack in their day, and therefore when the coffee with the boss comes up or whatever, they don't have time to take those opportunities because they've stacked their day to kind of not be able to have those. So going for lunch, having those human touch points are so important, and we need to make sure that we kind of fit them into our days, because it is the kind of softer stuff you can't really predict. That just and then meetings come up as well, and it's just like, how many hours of work can I actually do, and just the fact that no one can work 8 hours solid. I think people should plan to work 2 to 4 hours a day. I'm glad you said that. I was like 4, but 4, I think you're completely right. And for me, I think if I can get those 2 hours, those core 2 hours in the morning, I think I'm winning. Because 100%. Everything else can just, so 2 hours of like almost the deep work 2 hours, if I can get those in the morning. I've done my tick sheet of like, the vlog is prepped, I've done the vlog, I've checked I've glanced at all the emails to check of like clashes or whatever, and I've done the calendar check to make sure everything is in the thing for today, instead of my next hour being what we discussed before of like being a power hour to do the important non-urgent. I think actually that needs to be the important urgent of like, here's the hour of deep work, and then in the afternoon post lunch I can do my like important not urgent, because I've a bit more low energy. It's usually going to be reading or listening or watching something, and it's that leveling up kind of thinking's time, and then you have enough buffer in the day, and then it's like, cool, I've got time to do all of the little bits. So then there's like an hour of like email and footage management and stuff, and then a bit more vlog, and it's like, okay, actually I'm okay because I did my 1 hour of deep work or 2 hours of deep work in the morning. And now it almost doesn't matter what happens for the rest of the day. And it's what's going to move the needle, isn't it? Have I got those things in the day? Great. Okay, everything else. Like, Baz has got a really, sometimes incredibly annoying strategy, but like a very good strategy of basically the do nothing strategy. And it's like surprising how many things just resolve themselves without you needing to get involved. Like, they'll find another solution, or they will do like whatever, and it's very frustrating how often that works out for him, because I'm quite the opposite, but it works. And actually I think sometimes we feel like we need to respond to everything, do everything, be on top of everything, and it's like, sometimes actually you just don't get around to it, someone else will do it, and that's fine too. It's so true. Or to your point, you realise it is not a priority. It felt like a priority, but actually 3 days later you're like, oh yeah, glad we didn't do anything of that, because actually mind changed or whatever. That's a very, very good point. Cool. Now I've got my homework. I think we should. I was going to say, it feels like a good place to leave it. Oh man, I don't like having homework. It's another thing to add to the list, but it is. It's very good. It's 100% a good thing. I will do my homework. Like accountability here, like we like a little bit of like skin in the game. So. I'm terrible though, because we'll finish this call and then I'll forget about it, and then next Sunday I'll be like, shit. I will text you tomorrow morning. And be like,
Okay.
"Right, Bhav."
Okay, thank
Homework.
you. I think I need, I need that because I'm very good on the call of being like, I'll do X, Y, and Z. Then I will get off the call and I will forget about the entire conversation because I was like, I did the call, like box ticked.
Yeah. I think you get energized by the ididea, not the execution.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. I'm like, yeah, this sounds amazing.
The best thing ever.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Well,
I almost,
back to the beginning of the conversation, really, where we started very firstly was just like, it's just doing it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Will did it. He just did the extra things.
he just did the thing.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier to do with people around. I think that the whole, like, we're going to finish the call and then I'll be like, cool, no one around.
No grown-ups.
Got a free day. Yeah, basically just like my day will go to like crap because it'll be like, there's no structure. I've got literally 101 things to do and I know that none of them will happen because there's just no one here. And
so I think maybe that'd make a really interesting podcast next week in terms of
why I can't get anything done.
No, well, just about like, I guess how we're okay letting ourselves down, but not other people.
Yes, good point. Because you're right. Because come tomorrow when I'm back in the office, I'll be like, it is such a strange thing because I will like at work, pretty much everything gets done. Like if you give me something, of course I'm going to do it because I'm not letting you down.
Exactly.
I will let myself down. Okay, yeah, great topic. Let's park that for another week. All right, cool. This has been fun as always.
Good. Well, it was good. Yeah, good. Well, I'm just still riding on the Stephen Bartlett stories. I'm happy with that.
I will show you the book in a second.
I was going to say,
behind
please
me.
do. Yeah.
It's I don't know if you can see it. Oh, you can see it in the background.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I will show you the message as well when we get off.
So jealous.
He's just this guy. This guy.
Yeah, we don't often say that on a podcast. We're usually like, oh, this guy.
This guy.
Oh my god, this one.
But yeah, no, this guy. This is a guy.
He's a good one. Yeah.
He's 100% a good one. We're all big fans, Stephen. Not that you're listening. All right, cool. Let's call it a day. Otherwise, we will carry on for another hour. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, as always, or watching if you are watching. If you're on YouTube, do the whole comment, like the usual jazz. We want to know what you liked from this episode and what you didn't, and what you'd like to hear more or less of. And if you do have any questions, whenever we get this episode up, then leave them in the comments below. And if you're listening, please, it would be lovely if you could leave us a review. Don't think we have many of those, if any. And yeah, again, just let us know what you like and didn't like. Really appreciate you listening or watching.